Hello gamers and welcome to my channel called Fitter Philosophy. I'm your host, I'm Ralphie. I provide this channel and it's basically me as a kind of older man presenting a bit of observations of life, because one of the most important things any human can do is pass on the value, the wisdom, the anecdotes, the experience, because it helps our younger generation, a new generation, to get their bearings a lot more quickly and to help with not just the survival, but of course the quality of life. And there's nothing teaches more about life than observing other people around us and seeing the mistakes they make and seeing the things they get right. And I want to tell you a story today as part of my funeral stories series, and it's about Donny, named Donald, who was a very ordinary Glasgow chap, and I never knew Donny. None of us really knew Donny because he was a very quiet man. He kept himself to himself. He was never a family man. He had a very specific mission in life, and that was to spend as much time as possible in a bar drinking beer. There you go. Some people have that ambition. It's not so popular these days, but a few decades ago, certainly back in the 60s, 70s and 80s, it was a remarkably popular pastime. And there was definitely a sense of community in local bars where the regulars would come. Excuse me, it's just as well I've got my cup of tea here. Where the regulars would come in and share their day's events with the folk around them that they knew. And as the alcohol flowed over the bar, from glass to glass, the conversation grew more lively, more predictable, and more entertaining. And that was the culture that was then. In a sense, bars were places where, particularly community bars, where people would go knowing the ground rules, stick to the ground rules, and everybody got on. And in fact, it was a tangible community beyond the confines of the family home. And this is something that Donny really latched onto, because he wasn't a family man. He was the youngest of 9 children, because big families were a thing in the old days, in the really old days. And he had that many nephews and nieces, and for other reasons he just never got round to getting a girlfriend or raising a family or doing the conventional things in life. His job was a very quiet job. He was basically an industrial plumber, which meant he dealt with all the pipe works in a factory. It was one of these old-fashioned factories that you're just left to get on with the job, and the management stick in their office and nobody bothers you. So he had a quiet job, and he knew it. He did the job quite well, according to the people who knew him. And he was neither well thought of or not well thought of. He was simply the anonymous, quiet man who turned up for his shift, got it done, and disappeared home briefly to have his dinner before spending the rest of the night in the bar. He wasn't a big spender. And I think that this is something that the nephews and nieces noticed more than his brothers and sisters. They never bothered him because he was the odd one out. He wasn't quite the black sheep of the family, but he was certainly the grey sheep of the family. It's just the way things are. And he basically just carried on with the same routine for decades. He worked his job for 40 years because he literally started in that one factory as soon as he left school at the age of 12, where he was just basically fetching and carrying for a few years until he discovered his skills were in plumbing, pipe work, installation and maintenance. And he was quite versatile, whether it be conventional water plumbing or hydraulic systems or anything. If it required and involved flowing liquids, he would have a shot at it, and generally it went absolutely fine, and it didn't cost the company any extra money, so they were quite happy with it. He didn't have much contact with the family. His family was the bar. Sure, now and again they'd spot him staggering home at the end of the night, and they'd offer him a lift, and he'd usually refuse, even when it was raining, because he needed the exercise. And basically he'd tell them that the walk walked off the intoxication, got him sober again in time for bed. And we're really looking at a very ordinary man, unexceptional, really not a lot to mention really. So what's the point of the story? And the point is that in the most ordinary people you can discover the most extraordinary of circumstances, because Donny's interest in pipes and pipe work led him to develop little models of fluidics and motion flow and all sorts of liquid related stuff. He was a big fan of the academic thinkers who observed nature and how things work. And a few of the books were found in his house when he died, and when the family went to his house there was very little there to be seen. There was very little to find apart from the basic kitchen utensils, a bed, a chair, a table. He never had visitors. He never encouraged it. He lived a very solitary life outside of work and the pub. They found a few pipes and joints and things, and they never thought much about it. They just got rid of it. But it was the pub that knew more about Donny, and the consequence was that when the family went to the pub to inform them that he'd passed away, they asked, well, do you want his stuff back? And they said, well, what stuff's this? And they said, well, we've got boxes of bits and pieces and valves and fluidy stuff and copper pipes, and he just brought them in here because we've got space out the back, and asked them if we could store them for him. And they said, no, to be honest, we're not interested. Just sell it and put it and buy everybody a drink. Right. So the bar manager agreed, fine. Yeah, he'd known Donny for a long time, for about 30 years. So he knew how fitting that was, and he appreciated the family's gesture. So they organised to sell the stuff, at which point they were approached by one of the Scottish universities, who were very interested in what they had. They were made a reasonable offer for it, and the university, when they were looking through the stuff, says, now you've got this little box of stuff at the bottom, and nuts and bolts is what it says in the tin, but it's not what's inside. And the manager was shocked to discover that the tin box marked nuts and bolts was full of small gold coins. They counted it up, contacted the family, and the family, rather than not wanting to renege on their agreement, they said, I tell you what, we'll give you a percentage of it, is that okay? They said, fine, because we appreciate your honesty. They said, fine. So when they sold the gold, they got something like £30,000, and £5,000 went behind the bar, and £25,000 went to nephews and nieces, specifically for training, education and acquiring skills. So all credit to the family, to Donny's family. They just didn't give the money to the kids to piss out the window. They had to use them for specific purposes. It was certainly agreed at the wake, to which the family attended, that Donny was an eccentric man. He was a complete, authentic, traditional nonconformist who never made a fuss. He lived his life entirely on his own terms, selfishly so, but on his own terms, and had a successful life in his own terms. The legacy that he left allowed 2 nieces to train as nurses, 1 nephew to train as a plumber, 1 nephew to study art and design, at which point he became a cartoonist for science fiction magazines and did very, very well for himself. And I'm relating this story to you because as we look at other people on the outside, it really is surprising how little we actually know. And it's only for people like myself that are undertakers. I was an undertaker at the time, and I learnt about Donny's situation from the people attending the funeral and the people that came in to pay the funeral account. And also listening into the eulogy at the funeral service, because some of these eulogies, they're absolutely extraordinary. I mean, don't get me wrong, many are really very pedestrian. Some are remarkably boring. There's not a lot to say, because people really haven't lived much of a life. But you would be surprised at how many ordinary people are involved in extraordinary things. Bye-bye.